Ron Hextall made a pair of depth trades on deadline day, acquiring Nick Bonino back to Pittsburgh and also bringing in veteran defenseman Dmitry Kulikov. He only traded a fifth and a seventh to bring in Nick Bonino. Montreal was the third team to retain half the salary, so Bonino's basically making only $1 million for the rest of the season. So much emotion was going through my head when I first saw this. I'm thinking Nick Bonino's older now, washed up, but at the same time, I'm thinking it's Nick Bonino, man. I don't care. There's sometimes where you put your hockey opinions on the side and you just become a fan, and Nick Bonino is so nostalgic seeing him on the team. But at the same time, being nostalgic over players won't win you games. Being good at hockey will win you games. So after I started looking more into the trade and seeing what Nick Bonino still has left in the tank, I actually don't mind this at all. Basically, straight up what this is to me, it's a Teddy Blueger replacement. Nick Bonino should be your fourth line center to close out the year. It's basically an identical version of Teddy Blueger, just way older with more experience. And you'd think he's slower and worse, but looking at what he's put up with San Jose, a terrible team, he has double-digit goals. 10 goals, 19 points in 59 games for Bonino with the Sharks. And if this is your Teddy Blueger replacement, I think you maintain the same defensive player who will bring you a bit more offense on that fourth line. You're bringing in a veteran center who can win faceoffs, kill penalties, play great defensively, be trusted pretty much anywhere on the ice. And what I'm describing here is basically Teddy Blueger, but only difference here is I think Bonino will bring in that extra goal that Blueger just couldn't have brought this season for some reason, because Teddy Blueger was always able to just pitch in offensively. This year it just dried up. So you're basically just bringing Nick Bonino. You're hoping he can provide a little bit more on the offensive side of things. And also the bonus that we haven't even mentioned is the fact that he knows the team and Mike Sullivan knows him. So overall, it's going to be a great connection that we already had before. I think he's going to fit in perfectly. I also think Nick Bonino is going to get second life with the Penguins, because you just got to imagine he's playing meaningless hockey right now with the Sharks. Stepping into that locker room and seeing all those familiar faces, not many left, but the main ones are still there. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Mike Sullivan. That should be enough to give him second life with the Penguins. And not even saying that he's a bad player now, but just to elevate his game to that next level, playing meaningful hockey, and maybe go down as one of the better Penguins fourth line centers that they've ever had. Obviously, I'm talking recent memory fourth line centers, but it's funny that his role now, Nick Bonino, is basically what Matt Cullen's role was a few years back when they brought him in for those cup runs. And it's crazy how life goes around, and now Nick Bonino might have to be the team dad, even though he's younger than most of the core. So just overall, for what you gave up, I love what you're getting in Nick Bonino. And then you move on to the next trade they made, Kulikov, dumping McGinn's contract in the process, and also a third-round pick to bring in the rental. Dmitry Kulikov, for a good part of his career, has been a good defensive-minded defenseman, but now he goes onto the Ducks, who are the worst defensive team I've seen in my entire life, maybe of all time. So obviously, everyone's numbers on that team is going to take a bit of a hit. So I'm not really looking at what Kulikov has done with the Ducks this year. That's unfair to him. Just looking at what he's done years past, I like the addition. I also love that you're getting rid of Brock McGinn's almost $3 million for the next 2 years after this one. So that's going to free up some cap space in the summertime. And I also think Kulikov may be at use. He's a solid, I think, bottom pairing guy, but it raises a lot of questions now because the Penguins have 10 defensemen on the roster. When they first made this move, I thought for sure it's a two-parter that would have included maybe a Marcus Pettersson or a Brian Dumoulin to be traded for another forward in the bottom six. People were expecting either JT Miller or Brock Besser, and although that would have looked very nice, the price would have been high, and Hextall doesn't like paying big prices. Even if they went a little bit down the list and picked another bottom six forward, I just feel like this Kulikov trade needed to be part one of something else. They needed to bring in another forward because you have way too many defensemen on this team. The whole problem from day one in the summertime was that this team has way too many defensemen. You knew that Hextall was trying to move Pettersson in the summer. We all wanted Dumoulin out the whole year pretty much. There was a report that apparently Jeff Petrie became available a few weeks ago. I don't know if I believe that, but regardless, a defenseman needed to go out. So what does Ron Hextall do? He brings in another one, which makes no sense to me. The defenseman he brought in, I like. Kulikov, 1 year. I like that he got rid of McGinn's contract. So even, again, if Kulikov doesn't play, the idea of McGinn's contract being out is great. But I would have loved everything so much more if maybe like an hour later, Ron Hextall had pulled the trigger for another forward using one of his many defensemen and essentially replacing one of his many defensemen with a Kulikov while improving your bottom six. I think would have been great work from Hextall. Maybe he tried. I'm sure he did, but unfortunately, he couldn't have gotten anything done. So here it is. Here's the team entering the ending of the season. Again, I like some of these moves. I like the change that is being made. I just feel like another move in that bottom six, and I would have been really comfortable with this team. But now the main question, are the Penguins a better team now after these trades than they were before? I'm going to say yes. So I guess Ron Hextall does deserve a bit of credit. But at the same time, that's only because the team we had before, that bottom six, was atrocious, and that was Ron Hextall's doing. He did improve it just by getting rid of McGinn and Kapanen, guys like Drew O'Connor who are getting more elevated ice time. And then you have Heinen also, who got put in the lineup after being a healthy scratch. So just Drew O'Connor and Heinen in for Kapanen and McGinn, I think is an upgrade by itself. Then you bring in Mikael Granlund, who we spoke about in the last video. He played his first game with the Penguins last night. I really liked what I saw. He brought a spark to that third line that we haven't had all year long. Again, small sample size, it was one game, and Granlund's work on the penalty kill last night was really impressive. I didn't know he killed penalties like that. And at the end of the day, my only question and concern is, can this current bottom six get you more of that secondary scoring than the previous one? And I do think the answer is yes. You do also have way more depth on your blue line, more flexibility. You know, having Kulikov as your 7th D and Ruhwedel as your 8th and Friedman as your 9th and Smith as your 10th is very much of an upgrade. So overall, I don't mind the trade deadline that Ron Hextall had. Only thing I'll mention is that I feel like one more piece in that bottom six would have been beautiful. You had the defenseman to make the moves. You even acquired Kulikov. I felt like something for sure was going to happen. The current new bottom six maintains its defensive play while hopefully adding a bit more offense to it. I don't think you've took away from the defense to add offense. I think you kept it, if anything, strengthened the defense of it. And you're just hoping now they can provide more secondary scoring. I think now you just have more flexibility in your lineup. Like we mentioned, the defense, so many bodies can go in and out. The bottom six is a bit stronger. I think guys like Granlund, who can play both center wing, can play third line, second line, first line, like that is a big help. If injuries hit, you can try different things. You have a lot of center depth now, a lot of guys who can play center and can move up and down the lineup. I like it. I don't love it. Could have been better, but also could have stayed the same that it was before. So overall, I'll take it. My biggest concern with Ron Hextall this whole year was the fact that he wasn't doing anything. He saw what was put on the ice. The bottom six was bad all year long, and he was really doing nothing about it, especially over this last, we'll say, 6 weeks where it really got bad. Worse than it's ever been before. And he was just watching same thing over and over, game in and game out. No help to the top six, and he was doing nothing about it. So now just watching him over the last week, really trying his best to mixing and matching the players. It's a breath of fresh air. I thought my main concern, he was just going to stick with that same exact team. That would have been a big fail. At least he tried, and he technically did improve it. By how much, we don't know. We have to see how this team plays on the ice. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. What would you grade Ron Hextall's trade deadline? I certainly don't think it's an A, but I don't think it's an F either. So I'd love to hear where you guys stand. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.